right. All right. So I don't know. Oof. So it's been interesting this week, right? Because depending on what fans you were talking to, either the season's been over for like 4 weeks or like this was the game on the line, playoff type deal. I wasn't there with this game, to be honest. To me, the Browns' realistic chance to make the playoffs is when they took their ability to control their own fate out of their own hands, and that's when they lost those 2 games in a row to Miami and Buffalo. After that, playoffs is kind of a crapshoot. You can win out and make it. You can lose the next game and not make it. You can win out and not make it. It didn't really, like, it wasn't really up to us. So my die-hardness or live or die-ness with a given game isn't going to be the same as when you lose a game that loses your ability to control your own destiny like they did 2 weeks ago. If that makes sense to y'all, right? Because that's where I felt like, hey, your ability to control your own fate died that day. Now you're just like hoping on hope that things fall your way. You can make the playoffs, which, admiral, but like, I'm not about to live or die like this was a playoff game. So I might not have the level of anger or frustration that some people have. And if you feel that way, I'm not here to say that's invalid or anything. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from emotionally. Did not think this team really had a great shot to make the playoffs, even if they won out, quite frankly. Felt like the chance of them winning out was a little bit higher than a lot of people expected, but obviously that's busted now. But I didn't even think that, hey, getting to 10-7 was realistic. Like you're going to, well, I didn't think that even if you got to 10-7, your chances to make the playoffs were very realistic. Because the tiebreakers, we lose every tiebreaker almost in the AFC. Pretty much every tiebreaker. And now, I mean, it's a wrap. But that's not to say that what you were watching the season for is a wrap, right? I think there's a lot to gain out of the rest of the season and watching the rest of the season. I'm clearly going to watch the rest of the season because it's my job. And some of you guys are going to watch the season because, you know, watching the Browns kind of like a job for y'all, right? But I think what was important to me, and I said this on AFC North Talk, so, you know, it is a cope, but it's a cope that I was saying before the game. Like, it's not something I just made up instantly during the game. But I said this during the game. I would feel a lot better if the Browns lost this game, but if Watson showed some definitive steps that he's getting back to who he used to be. Right? My whole thing about last week's game was he never hit that double, never got comfortable, was thinking about his mechanics, and that I felt like more so than him being rusty, he just looked uncomfortable. Right? It didn't seem rusty. Today definitely didn't seem rusty. I think the misses in the offense, that has to do with him just being in a new offense. Right? Jacoby Brissett had, on my film breakdowns, you could look at it from like week 2 and week 3. There were several plays where like Jacoby missed this, Jacoby missed that, Jacoby missed this. He didn't see this. He didn't know that this was going to develop here. That happens a ton when you're in a new offense, because what happens is you game plan for this play versus this look, right, in practice. That's usually what you do, is that you game plan for this play, this look, and maybe if it's a staple play, you game plan it against multiple looks. But what happens in the live action game, in a real game, not practice, is you get a look you weren't expecting. And it's not necessarily the look that you don't want versus this play, but it's not necessarily the look that you want. So you don't know what should be open because you have no prior experience running that play versus this specific look. So you need that rep, right? You need to miss it so you can see what happens when you run it. And then the next time you run it, you can go, okay, if they're doing that, I'm going to go here. But if that's not there, I'm going here. Then you could be more definitive with it, right? That's the part. Like, learning an offense isn't about learning the plays, because that's the easy part. It's about learning how to execute the plays versus different coverages. Is this man? Is this cover 3? Are they shelling cover 3, but it's really cover 1, one high? Is this quarters, or is this a cover 6? What are they giving me? Are they giving me a flip look? Are they playing man on one side versus the other? If so, how does that change the read on this play? Those are the things. That's why it's important to get him acclimated. And I think it is a positive step in general that he's at the point now to where those are the issues because that's ahead of schedule. If we were talking about shaking off Russ for 3 weeks and then moving on to some of the higher difficulty stuff with the offense, that'd be a problem. But the rust seems gone at this point. It's really just him learning the offense, getting more comfortable in the offense. And that's not a guarantee that he gets comfortable in this offense, right? We have to see him get comfortable because that's what this offense kind of requires. And if he's not comfortable in that offense ultimately, then that's going to lead to job security questions for people on that side of the ball. So I think he's going to get comfortable. I think all the signs are there that he's going to get comfortable. He just needs time to get there. And again, I thought, there were a couple plays very early on where it's like, okay, he missed this because they played a look that he wasn't expecting, or he didn't think that would be open there. That's an easy fix. That's a super easy fix. That's fine. You can just run things out in film. You're seeing stuff. That's why he's out there, right? More so than it is to make the playoffs, which that's always the goal, to win games when you're playing football, obviously. But more so than that, for the long-term future of the game, of this team, you need them out there so you can get some diagnosis of, okay, what do they do when we do this? How do we adjust to that? So now if we know that they're going to do this and that when we run this, now we know we can adjust our reads to this play to this and that. Deshaun Watson being out there changes the reads. What was the looks and what the defense was doing with Jacoby Brissett is not the same thing that they're going to do with Deshaun Watson, two different skill sets. So some of those in two different levels of perceived skill sets from defensive coordinators. They're just going to react differently. They're going to take away different things. And also, they have adjusted to what Jacoby Brissett did well. So maybe they take away some of the stuff that Jacoby Brissett did well. He has to learn the adjustments. This is standard. This is standard stuff. What makes it difficult for Watson more so than like a quarterback in a new offense in a regular situation is he's doing this in week 14. Most teams get to do this with their new quarterback in week 1 and 2 when everybody's making adjustments. The Browns are the only ones making new quarterback adjustments right now. That's what makes it difficult. So that's going to be something that they have to hurdle. But I think for what he was asked to do today, he performed well. Threw a bad interception. I talked about it before. His eye discipline is not where it needs to be again, right? Like that. If there's anything to say that he's rusty, it's the eye discipline. Last week he threw an interception because he stared down his guy and really didn't stare him down. He tried to look off a safety last week and he came back too early to where he wanted to throw the ball. He needs to hold that safety just a little bit longer. I don't think he has a good read. He don't think he has his timing back on that, right? Where he knows I'm going to look. And I think since he's not comfortable in the offense yet and he's not been out there a ton and he's getting reacclimated to playing football, he wants to come back earlier than what he usually does because he just doesn't trust it as much. But once he trusts it more and he knows, don't look, commit, now go, right? He needs to wait that extra beat before he takes his eyes off of the decoy to get it to where he wants to. Both his interceptions have been on plays like that, right? Jesse Bates cut across the field because he saw the eyes too early. So he's got to get back to himself when it comes to that. But everywhere else, the athleticism, we saw him run the ball well today, scramble out, accuracy was really good. He's about 75% back, and I think the other 25 is just him trusting the offense. And I think it's realistic that you can get him up to about 95% back to who he was by the end of the year. And then obviously once you start the season next year, you'll take care of that 5% when everybody else is taking care of that 5% at the beginning of the season. So you won't have anything to worry about. So Deshaun Watson wise, is this going to be a Russell Wilson thing? Nah, I really am leaning in the direction against that. I wasn't leaning in that direction last week. This week made me even more confident. I want to see him get some more aggressive calls from Kevin Stefanski. I don't think Kevin called a great game this week. I felt like Kevin stuck to the run a little bit too long. DJ Reader was just dominating this team up front, had no answer for him, and it's been like that for 4 weeks since the backup center. The backup guard is now the center. It's just been like that. DJ Reader's a man amongst boys, and he was destroying our offensive line. It was obvious we weren't going to get anything done. So we needed to adjust off of that. We did not adjust off of that. We stayed in on that, and that was a problem. And it put us behind the sticks, right? It's not just the negative runs that put you behind the sticks. It's the holding calls, the multiple holding calls you got trying to run a ball against a team that was just dominating you. Just put you behind the sticks, put the offense in bad situations early in drives, and those were the drives that sputtered out where they tried to force running the ball. They got all these penalties. They got behind the sticks, and they couldn't get anything done. Bad play calling there. I think this was one of his worst play calling days. It's not his worst. He's definitely been worse. That's not good, but he's definitely been worse. But I also think that it's not like so bad that you got to fire somebody on site or he's got to give up play calling. So didn't think he called a good game. Definitely could have been a better game called. I'm not, there's just because I have a negative opinion, so that don't mean I'm willing to go all the way on the first time though. Well, not even on the first time. It's been multiple times this year, but it ain't been enough for me to panic about his ability to do it going forward. I understand he's kind of hand-tied too. The offensive staff is kind of hand-tied because they have a plan for Watson. They're not going to let him do certain stuff until they know for a fact he can handle this first, right? Because they don't want to give him too much and risk that his confidence gets destroyed, right? Some people are going to bring up, and somebody brought this up in chat, well, Baker was out there on his first game in like 2 days with the Rams, and they just let him rip. They have no future plan for Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield might be on the Rams next year. He might not. There's no guarantee. He's kind of just trying out at this point. So they could care less if he throws a bunch of interceptions and ruins his confidence. They don't have anything future tied to him. The Browns is a different situation. They got a lot of stuff tied to Watson. They need to make sure and protect his confidence at all parts and make sure that he doesn't become a different quarterback because he makes so many mistakes that he gets gun shy. They need to protect him. I understand the bind they're in. Still, I think it would have been more beneficial to be aggressive. They have a balance, right? You clearly want to win these games, but there is a dynamic at play that for the long-term future of this team is more important than potentially trying to make a very improbable last-ditch playoff run. You got to balance that. And I know a lot of fans aren't going to like hearing that because a lot of fans just want the right now, but you got to worry about the right now. Sure, you want to win every game in front of you, but that does not, especially at this point of the year, does not overstep what's good for the future at this point. You don't have a first-round pick, so it doesn't matter if you win these games or not because it's not your first-round pick, and it doesn't matter what the Texans get from it. Doesn't really change the compensation. But you want to see positive steps from Deshaun. You want to see him be able to handle what's in front of him. You want to see him gain confidence. I felt like there were moments here where he looked 100% back, and there were moments here where it's like, okay, we got some room to grow. So that's what I felt with Watson. Offensive line, I already mentioned, was bad. The offensive play calling didn't feel like I loved it this week. Defense, just some mistakes early on that really cost them. I felt like they played a really good first quarter. Like you couldn't have asked them to play a better first quarter. They kept the Bengals off the field. But then that damn running into the punter, roughing the punter penalty by Tony Fields, for whatever reason, decided to go and try to block a punt all out. I don't know if he was supposed to do that. I don't know if that's called, but I mean, it looks bad on Mike Prefer anyways, right? Whether it was intentional or not, because if it's not intentional, why is a player that you're coaching doing the dumbest shit possible all the time? And if it is, coach, why did you call that dumb shit? You see how there's not really any room for like, oh, well, Mike Prefer did this and Tony Fields just went rogue. No, dog. Tony Fields is coached to do things when he sees stuff, and you told him to do something stupid when he sees stuff. And I can only say that with definitive like confidence because we always do this dumb shit on special teams. Like, why are we running these kicks out when we barely get them back to the 25 half the time? Because you're coaching them to do that. Why do we do some of the dumb, like Peoples-Jones has been great as a punt returner, but before that, we were doing some crazy stuff with these punt returns every week, dog. Every week, we're just doing something crazy on special teams for no reason. No reason whatsoever. And I'm tired of it. He's got to go. My opinion's been known about that for quite a while now. But I mean, you get that penalty, and then you get on a third down, you get a pass interference from Denzel Ward where he yanks the back of Chase. He didn't need to do that. There was also another penalty on another drive where Jadeveon gets a sack, forces a long third down, but Isaiah Thomas on the other side gets a defensive hands to the face and gets them a free first down. The Bengals are a better football team than you. No matter how much you match up with them and all the benefits you have there, and those still exist, they're still a better football team than you, and you can't let a better football team just hang around and expect nothing to happen. You got to get on top of them and take advantages when you have them. Every time the Browns have beaten the Bengals, when the Bengals have been a better team and finished better than the Browns, they took advantage of those opportunities, right? 2020, that first game, they took advantage of those opportunities. 2021, 2021, the first game, 2021, the second game, they took advantage of those opportunities early. Same thing happened when they played this year, took advantage of those opportunities early. This year, we let the game go 0-0 for the whole first quarter, did not take advantage of any of those opportunities, made more mistakes, and whoever made the less mistakes was going to win this game, and the Bengals ultimately fixed their mistakes earlier and because they're a better team and then won the game. Hats off to the Bengals. They're a very good team. Browns, not so much, not yet. They're not there yet. They can be, but they're not there yet, obviously. The record speaks for itself at this point. Yeah, defensively, some good signs. Perion Winfrey played well. I felt like the back end, the secondary, disappointed. Jamar Chase was the only wide receiver out there. T. Higgins didn't play that much, and Tyler Boyd was out. And they still couldn't do a thing about Jamar Chase or any of the other wide receivers. So back to the drawing board with that. They got you. And it didn't even take them. It took Jamar Chase to get you there. So back to the drawing board with that. Defense stinks. The defense is what the defense is at this point. Joe Woods is who Joe Woods is at this point. Again, I could defend keeping Joe Woods until the end of the year because you don't want to make a bunch of changes, but I'm not going to defend keeping Joe Woods next year. If Kevin Stefanski decides to put his own rear end on the hot seat to keep Joe Woods and Mike Prefer, that's on him. But I ain't going with him on that point. I think Kevin has been able to do a defensible enough job to defend him going into his fourth year. But if he makes those two decisions going into next year, can't ride with it. I said it here, December 11th, so nobody says I flip-flop. If he does that, I can't ride with it. If he doesn't do that, I can ride with it. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But that's really my thoughts on the game. Let me know your thoughts. Everybody have a great day. Have a good night.